The console blinked to life, casting a glow on the tired faces of the team. I squinted at the screen, adjusting the knobs and dials. The fragmented signal had been detected 2 days ago, and we hadn't rested since. My name is Alex, one of the lead technicians on this project. The government called it Project Aurora. Alex, anything new? Dr. Morris's voice was strained, carrying the weight of sleepless nights. He was our lead scientist, a man once full of curiosity, now hollowed by fear. Just more noise, I replied. The static hissed through the speakers, interspersed with brief, incomprehensible bursts of sound. It felt like trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing and no picture to guide us. Hours dragged on, each minute marked by the beeping of the console. I barely noticed when the sun dipped, the room swallowed by the night. The team was a silent ensemble of whispers and the occasional cough. Then, amidst the static, a pattern emerged. I leaned in closer, my breath catching in my throat. Wait, I think I've got something. Dr. Morris was at my side in an instant, eyes wide with hope. What is it? Looks like a sequence, could be coordinates, maybe an instruction set. I isolated the repeating signals and filtered out the noise. The sequence solidified into something tangible, a series of symbols and numbers. We worked in silence, translating the alien script. Each symbol decoded felt like peeling back a layer of our understanding of the universe, and with it, an unsettling revelation. The message wasn't just coordinates. It was a blueprint. Detailed instructions for constructing a massive gate-like device, something beyond our current technological grasp. This can't be right, I murmured, staring at the final translation. The blueprint was intricate, the kind of complexity that seemed almost magical, but it was there, in black and white, undeniable and irrefutable. Dr. Morris's face was white as a sheet as he reached for the printouts. We need to take this to the higher-ups immediately. Within hours, we were in a high-security briefing room. Government officials, military personnel, and top scientists crowded around the table, eyes glued to the projection on the wall. I stood beside Dr. Morris, feeling like an ant before giants. This signal, Dr. Morris began, contains detailed instructions for building what appears to be an interdimensional gateway. Murmurs spread through the room, a ripple of disbelief and excitement. The head of the project, a stern-faced general, silenced them with a glare. "And you're certain of this?" "As certain as we can be," I answered. "The technology described here is beyond anything we have, but it's coherent, it's possible." The decision was made swiftly, bureaucracy overtaken by the allure of alien knowledge. Resources were allocated, construction plans drafted, and we became extremely busy. Months passed as the device took shape. The construction site was a fortress of secrecy, guarded day and night by armed soldiers. We worked under harsh lights, the noise of machinery a constant companion. Every bolt tightened, every wire connected, felt like a step closer to something we couldn't fully understand. We were working with technology so advanced, it felt like magic, trying to make sense of alien schematics that were at once both baffling and awe-inspiring. The construction site was a sprawling compound surrounded by high fences and heavily guarded checkpoints. Armed soldiers patrolled constantly, their presence a grim reminder of the seriousness of our task. As one of the lead technicians, I had full access, but the security measures were a constant source of tension. Our team consisted of top engineers, scientists, and technicians, all sworn to secrecy. The work was grueling, the days long, and the nights even longer. I found myself getting lost in the blueprints, my mind trying to grasp concepts that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Alien materials were shipped in under the cover of night. Their characteristics were completely new to us. I remember one particularly frustrating day. We were trying to decipher the power requirements for the gate. The calculations didn't make sense by human standards. Our equipment was pushed to its limits and still, we couldn't generate the necessary energy. Damn it, Alex, these numbers are impossible! Jenny, one of our lead engineers, slammed her fist on the table, causing a coffee cup to topple over. The liquid pooled, ignored, as we stared at the incomprehensible equations. We're missing something, I muttered, rubbing my temples. The headache that had been building all day was now a full-blown migraine. There's got to be an energy source we haven't considered. The higher-ups were impatient, their demands growing more urgent. Failure was not an option. One night, as I pored over the schematics for the 100th time, I noticed a tiny detail we had overlooked. It was a notation for a type of energy manipulation we hadn't even considered. "Jenny, look at this," I called. She hurried over, peering at the page. "Is that—" She trailed off, her eyes widening. "Quantum entanglement. But on this scale? It's insane." "Insane or not, it's the key," I replied. We worked through the night, recalibrating our equipment, making modifications to the gate's design. The energy requirements began to make sense, aligning with the alien technology's principles. Weeks later, the power issue was resolved. The gate, now towering and ominous, stood ready for its final components. Finally, it was time to install the final piece, a strange crystalline component. We handled it with extreme care, knowing this was the heart of the device. The gate generated a deep, resonant vibration that permeated the air, a sound that felt ancient and powerful. The team gathered around. We were about to activate the gate, to open a door to the unknown. "Are we ready?" Dr. Morris asked. I took a deep breath, my hands on the control panel. "Ready." With a nod, he gave the command. I pressed the activation button and the gate roared to life. The hum became a roar, the structure vibrating with unimaginable energy. Light swirled within the frame, a chaotic dance of colors. Every eye was fixed on the swirling vortex within the frame of the gate. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once, a roiling mass of colors and shadows. "Begin preliminary scans," Dr. Morris ordered, his voice a controlled monotone. Despite his outward calm, I could see the sweat glistening on his forehead. I activated the scanners, the machines whirring to life as they attempted to probe the unknown. The data they fed back was confusing, as if the gate's energy was disrupting our instruments. "I'm getting a lot of interference," I reported. "The readings are all over the place." "Keep trying," Dr. Morris insisted. "We need to know what's on the other side." The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. The gate continued to hum, the swirling vortex seeming to grow more agitated. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every person on edge, waiting for something to happen. And then it did. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the gate, causing the ground to shake beneath our feet. Alarms came on as the readings on the monitors spiked into the red. "What's happening?" someone shouted, panic evident in their voice. "Power levels are off the charts," I yelled back, struggling to make sense of the chaotic data. I reached for the emergency shutdown switch, but before I could activate it, the vortex stabilized. The chaotic swirl of colors coalesced into a dark, shimmering void. For a moment, everything was still. Then, from the depths of the void, shapes began to emerge. The first of the alien soldiers stepped through the gate, and the room fell into a stunned silence. They were taller than any human, their metallic skin shining under the harsh lights. Each one had 4 arms, each arm ending in a hand with long, dexterous fingers. The room erupted into chaos as the security team scrambled to respond. The alien troops spread out in a coordinated formation, their movements smooth and precise. I watched in horror as one of the soldiers grabbed a guard and effortlessly snapped his neck, the body dropping lifelessly to the floor. Another guard was impaled by a spear-like weapon, blood spraying as he was lifted off the ground and tossed aside like a doll. The screams of my colleagues filled the air as they were cut down one by one. I ducked behind a console, my heart pounding in my chest. The sounds of battle were deafening. Gunfire, screams, the inhuman roars of the aliens. I peeked out from my hiding spot, only to see one of the aliens tearing through our equipment. Their strength and durability were beyond anything we had imagined. Jenny's urgent grip broke through my haze of fear. She grabbed my arm, pulling me towards an emergency exit. We ran, the sounds of slaughter fading behind us. I struggled to make sense of what had just occurred. The gate had worked, but instead of the knowledge and power we had hoped for, we had unleashed a nightmare. We burst out into the open air, the night cool against my flushed skin. The compound was in chaos, people running in every direction. I could see the glow of fires in the distance, hear the distant sounds of combat. We headed towards the command center, hoping to find some semblance of order, some way to coordinate a response. When we got there, it was a scene of utter chaos. Military personnel and scientists shouted over each other, panic and urgency filling the air. Screens displayed live feeds from various parts of the compound, showing the alien troops methodically tearing through our defenses. Jenny and I burst in, gasping for breath. Colonel Mason spotted us immediately. "What the hell happened, Alex?" he demanded. "The gate. It worked, but it brought them here," I stammered, still trying to catch my breath. "They're stronger than anything we've ever seen. Bullets barely scratched them." "Damn it," Mason muttered, turning to his officers. "We need to contain this. Deploy all remaining units to Sector A. Hold them back at all costs." The doors burst open, and a team of heavily armed soldiers rushed in, ready to be deployed. I watched them go, knowing they were marching to their deaths. The screens showed more aliens emerging from the gate, their numbers growing by the minute. Mason barked into his radio. "Alpha Team, hold your position. Bravo Team, flank from the south. Do not let them breach the inner perimeter." I turned to Jenny, who was pale and shaking. "We need to find a way to shut that gate down." "How?" she asked. "We barely understand how it works." Before I could respond, the feed from one of the cameras cut out, replaced by static. Another followed, and then another. "They're taking out our surveillance," Mason noted grimly. "We're blind." An explosion rocked the building, and the lights dimmed. Screams and gunfire echoed from the hallway. They were getting closer. "We need to move," Mason ordered, ushering us towards a reinforced door leading to an underground bunker. We hurried down the narrow stairwell, the sounds of battle growing fainter as we descended. The bunker was cramped and dark, filled with hastily assembled equipment and huddled personnel. Mason slammed the door shut behind us, sealing it with a heavy bolt. "All right," he said, turning to face us. "We need to figure out how to disable that gate." "Ideas!" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "If we can disrupt the power supply, it might force the gate to shut down. But we'd need to get close enough to the core to do it, and the hostiles are swarming the area." "Then we create a distraction," Mason decided. "Draw them away from the gate long enough for a team to get in and sabotage it." "I'll go," I volunteered, surprising even myself. "I know the schematics best. I can find the power source." "No," Mason said firmly. "You're too valuable. We need you to guide us. Take a team and direct them remotely." I nodded, realizing he was right. My place was here, using my knowledge to give us a fighting chance. "Fine, but we need to act fast. Every second counts." Mason called for a team of volunteers, and within minutes, a group of grim-faced soldiers was assembled. I quickly briefed them on the gate's structure, pointing out the critical points they needed to target. "We'll be in constant contact," I assured them. "Just follow my instructions, and we might stand a chance." The team moved out, leaving the relative safety of the bunker. I watched them go, a knot of fear tightening in my stomach. The screens showed the compound's exterior, now a war zone of smoke and fire. The intruders moved with precision, their four-armed forms cutting through our defenses like a hot knife through butter. Alex, we've got movement on the north side, Mason interrupted my thoughts, pointing to a monitor. Looks like they're trying to flank us. I adjusted the controls, bringing up a thermal imaging feed. Sure enough, a group of hostiles were moving through the shadows, attempting to breach our last line of defense. Team Alpha, reposition to intercept. Hold them off as long as you can, I instructed. The next few minutes felt like hours. The screens moved between scenes of intense combat, the sound of distant explosions rumbling through the bunker. I directed the Sabotage team through the compound, using every trick and shortcut I knew to avoid the enemy patrols. We're at the gate, the team leader's voice came over the radio. How do we proceed? Head for the crystal, I instructed, my eyes scanning the schematics. Destroy it. Copy that, the leader responded. The feed showed the team moving into position, their movements swift and practiced. Alex, we've got more incoming, Mason said, pointing to another monitor. A fresh wave of invaders was pouring through the gate, their numbers overwhelming. Hurry, I urged the team. You need to destroy the crystal now. We're on it, the leader answered. The screen showed them placing charges around the crystal, setting the timers. Charges set, moving to a safe distance. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. I watched the team retreat, the invaders closing in from all sides. An explosion rocked the compound and the screens went white with static. I held my breath, waiting for the dust to settle. Slowly the feed cleared, showing the gate's frame still intact, but the vortex within shimmering unsteadily. It's working, I breathed. The gate's destabilizing. The team's leader came back on the radio, his voice strained. We've got wounded. Need immediate evac. Hold your position, I replied. We're sending help. Mason dispatched a rescue team, and I watched anxiously as they fought their way to the gate. The rescue team reached the wounded, dragging them back under heavy fire. Come on, I muttered, willing them to move faster. We're almost there, the team leader panted. Just a little further. A loud crack echoed through the bunker, and the main power grid went dark. The monitors blinked off, plunging us into darkness. What happened? Jenny cried, fumbling for a flashlight. Power failure, Mason cursed. The gate's overloading the system. We need to get out of here, I said urgently. We scrambled through the dark, the sounds of distant combat growing louder. I could hear the invaders getting closer. We reached the surface, the night air filled with smoke and the smell of burning. Over here, a soldier called, waving us towards an armored transport. We piled in, the vehicle lurching forward as soon as the doors slammed shut. I looked back at the compound, now a scene of utter devastation. Fires raged, and the ground was littered with wreckage and bodies. We arrived at the military base, exhausted. Things were hectic here. I spotted a command center set up in one of the hangars and made my way over, Jenny close behind me. Colonel Mason was already there, his face tired but still exuding authority. He glanced up as we approached. Report. The crystal is destroyed, but it didn't work, I said, my voice barely concealing my frustration. The gate is still active. My guess is it's being powered from the other side now. Mason swore under his breath. So we're back to square one. I nodded. We need another plan. We moved to a table covered in maps and schematics, the chaos of the base a constant background noise. I stared at the blueprint of the gate. We needed to sever the connection. But how? Think, Alex, think, I muttered to myself, pacing back and forth. The images of the invaders, their ruthless advance, played over and over in my mind. We had to stop them, but conventional means had failed. Suddenly an idea struck me. A disruptor, I said, turning to Jenny and Mason. We need to create a disruptor that can sever the connection at the gate itself. Mason looked skeptical. A disruptor? What kind of disruptor? Something that can interfere with the energy link between our world and theirs, I explained, my mind working furiously. If we can generate a strong enough field at the gate, we might be able to break the connection. Jenny's eyes lit up. It could work, but we need to figure out the specifics. How do we generate that kind of energy? I grabbed a piece of paper and began sketching. We'll need a portable device, something we can get close to the gate. It has to generate a high-frequency electromagnetic pulse, strong enough to disrupt the link. I started working with Jenny and a team of engineers, pooling our knowledge and resources. The base's workshop became our lab. "We need to focus on the power source first," I said, poring over the sketches. "It has to be compact, but powerful." Jenny was already rifling through parts and components. "We can use a modified generator. It won't be stable, but it'll give us the output we need." We scavenged parts from the base's stockpile, improvising and adapting as we went. The disruptor began to take shape, a compact device designed to emit a powerful electromagnetic pulse. Every wire, every circuit was meticulously placed, each component critical to its function. "How's the frequency modulator coming?" I asked one of the engineers, who was working on the delicate task of tuning the device. "Almost there," he replied. "We need to make sure it's perfectly aligned, or it won't generate the right kind of pulse." Hours blended into each other as we worked, the urgency of our task driving us to push through our exhaustion. The sounds of battle were distant now, but the threat was ever present in our minds. Finally, the device was assembled, small enough to be carried but bristling with potential energy. We had designed it with a single purpose: to disrupt the gate's power source and sever the connection. I looked at our creation, hope and fear swirling in my chest. This was our last chance. If this failed, I didn't know what we would do. We reconvened in the briefing room, a grim atmosphere hanging over us like a shroud. Colonel Mason stood at the head of the table, a map of the compound and surrounding area spread out before him. The room was filled with members of the Special Operations team, their expressions stern and focused. These were the best of the best, soldiers trained for the most dangerous and critical missions. Mason cleared his throat, bringing the room to attention. "Listen up, everyone. We have a plan to shut down the gate. This is going to be a high-risk operation, and there's a good chance not all of us will make it back. But if we don't do this, we're looking at total annihilation." He pointed to the map, where the gate was marked with a red X. "Our objective is here. Alex has designed a disruptor that we believe can sever the connection powering the gate from the other side. Our job is to get him to the gate and keep him safe long enough to activate it." I felt all eyes turn towards me. I swallowed, nodding in acknowledgement. Mason continued, "This is Captain Tate and his team. They're going to be leading the charge." He gestured to a tall, imposing figure standing to his right. Captain Tate had the look of a man who had seen it all, his face lined with experience. Tate stepped forward, his voice calm and authoritative. "We'll be moving in fast and hard. Our primary objective is to get Alex to the gate. We'll be taking 2 transports to get us as close as possible. From there, we'll be on foot. Expect heavy resistance." He looked directly at me. "Alex, you stick with me. You don't engage unless absolutely necessary. Your job is to stay alive and get that disruptor activated." "Understood," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Mason outlined the rest of the plan, detailing the insertion points and the expected routes. "We'll create a diversion at the north end of the compound to draw as many of them away as possible. Team Alpha will handle that. Team Bravo, led by Tate, will escort Alex to the gate." The Special Ops team nodded, their expressions hardening as they absorbed the plan. These were men who had faced death countless times, but the stakes had never been higher. We moved to the loading area, the disruptor carefully secured in a reinforced case. The transports were ready, their engines idling, a low rumble filling the air. I climbed into the back of one, the interior cramped and dark. The Special Ops team filed in around me, checking their gear and weapons. Captain Tate sat across from me, his eyes studying me. "You good, Alex?" "Yeah," I said, though my stomach churned with fear. "Just a little nervous." "That's normal," he replied. "Just remember, stick with me and do exactly as I say. We'll get you there." The doors of the transport closed with a heavy clang, sealing us in. The vehicle lurched forward, the motion throwing us slightly off balance. The soldiers around me seemed unfazed, their focus on the mission ahead. The transport rocked and jolted as it sped toward the compound. The low rumble of the engine and the clanking of gear were the only sounds in the cramped space. Captain Tate and his team were focused, checking their weapons and gear one last time. "Remember the plan," Tate said, his voice steady and calm. "Stick together, watch your sectors, and keep Alex safe. We move fast and hit hard. No room for mistakes." The transport slowed as we approached our insertion point. The vehicle came to a halt with a hiss of hydraulic brakes. The back doors swung open, and we disembarked quickly, moving into a crouch. The night air was cool and carried the faint smell of smoke and burning. We were on the outskirts of the compound, the gate still a distant silhouette against the dark sky. "Alpha Team, you're up," Tate said into his radio. "Copy that," came the reply. Moments later, distant explosions lit up the night sky to the north, followed by the sound of gunfire and shouting. The diversion had begun. "Move out," Tate ordered. We advanced in 2 columns, hugging the shadows. The special ops team moved with precision, their rifles sweeping for targets. I stayed close to Tate, my grip on the disruptor case tight. We reached the first checkpoint, a guard tower overlooking a section of the perimeter fence. 2 of the intruders were posted there, their glowing red eyes scanning the area. Tate signaled 2 of his team members, who moved into position. "Engage," Tate whispered. Silenced shots rang out, the intruders dropping instantly. The team moved forward, securing the area. The efficiency and brutality of the operation left me in awe, but there was no time to dwell on it. We continued, slipping through the fence and into the compound. The compound was a war zone. Fires burned in several places, and the air smelled strongly of smoke and burning metal. We moved quickly, staying low and using the rubble for cover. The sounds of battle from the north were a constant reminder of the chaos surrounding us. "Hold here," Tate ordered as we reached the first building. He peered around the corner, scanning for threats. "Clear." We moved through the building, the team sweeping each room with precision. The interiors were silent, abandoned in haste. I followed closely. Each step felt like it could be my last. As we exited the building, we encountered our first major resistance. A group of intruders was patrolling the courtyard ahead, their forms glinting in the firelight. Tate signaled for us to hold position. "We need to take them out quietly," he said. "Silencers on." The team adjusted their weapons and we moved into position. The soldiers fanned out, taking aim. Tate gave the signal and a volley of silenced shots rang out. Most of the intruders fell, but a few managed to raise an alarm before being cut down. We sprinted across the courtyard, the element of surprise lost. We took cover behind a low wall as more intruders converged on our position. The special ops team returned fire. I crouched low, clutching the disruptor case, my heart racing. Bullets whizzed overhead, and the air was filled with the sounds of combat. We advanced in short bursts, the team laying down covering fire as we moved from one piece of cover to the next. We reached another building, taking cover inside. The firefight continued outside. The gunfire and explosions were extremely loud. I tried to steady my breathing, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. This was real. This was happening. And we were in the middle of it. "Alex, you okay?" Tate asked. "Yeah," I lied. "I'm fine. Stay close. We're getting you to that gate." We moved through the building, the team clearing each room. The halls were narrow, filled with rubble and the occasional body of a fallen soldier. We reached the other side, taking a moment to catch our breath. The gate was close now, the swirling vortex visible through the gaps in the buildings ahead. But the hardest part was still to come. We had to get through the heart of the enemy's territory, and they were waiting for us. "Regroup and reload," Tate ordered. The team quickly checked their weapons and ammo, preparing for the next push. This was it. We were almost there. "All right," Tate said. "We push forward. We hit them hard and we get Alex to that gate. No matter what. The closer we got, the more intense the sounds of battle grew. Each step felt like a march into hell. "Hold position," Tate ordered as we reached a barricade. He peered over the edge, scanning the area ahead. "Gate's just beyond this point. We make a run for it." I clutched the disruptor case tightly. This was it, the moment of truth. We reached the gate, its massive frame towering over us. The swirling vortex within pulsed, a portal to another world. I dropped to my knees, setting the disruptor case on the ground. I opened it, revealing the device within. It was a compact piece of technology, designed to emit a high-frequency electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt the gate's power source. I worked quickly, connecting the necessary wires and calibrating the settings. The sounds of battle were all around me, the screams of the dying and the roar of gunfire filling the air. "Almost there," I muttered to myself. "Alex, hurry up!" Tate's voice was urgent, his eyes darting between the advancing hostiles and my fumbling hands. I finished the last connection and powered it up. I stood up, holding the disruptor, and moved towards the gate. The team redoubled their efforts, their gunfire intensifying as they tried to keep the hostiles at bay. I approached the gate, the swirling vortex casting an eerie light on my face. The energy emanating from it was raw, unbridled power that made my skin tingle. I positioned the disruptor at the base of the gate, aligning it with the energy flow. "Here goes nothing," I whispered, activating the disruptor. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder and more intense. The disruptor emitted a blinding pulse of energy, aimed directly at the gate. The vortex within the gate reacted violently, the swirling light becoming unstable. We retreated, taking cover behind a nearby barrier. The disruptor's energy continued to build, the whine reaching an ear-splitting crescendo. The gate began to shake, the vortex within it thrashing wildly. The disruptor overloaded, sending a massive energy backlash through the gate. A blinding explosion erupted, a shockwave of force and heat slamming into us. I was thrown to the ground, the air driven from my lungs. The world spun around me, a loud, confusing mix of pain and chaos. When the dust settled, I struggled to my feet. The gate was gone, reduced to a smoldering ruin. The disruptor had done its job, severing the connection and destroying the portal. I looked around, my heart sinking. Several members of the team lay motionless, their bodies broken and charred. The survivors were bloodied and battered, their expressions grim. The invaders had been cut off, their reinforcements stopped. Tate staggered over to me, his face covered in soot and blood. "You did it, Alex." I nodded, too numb to speak. "Let's move," Tate said, helping me to my feet. "We need to get out of here." We limped away from the ruins of the gate, the sounds of battle fading behind us. The invaders' forces were quickly being overwhelmed by Earth's defenses, the tide finally turning in our favor. The next few weeks were extremely painful and difficult. I woke in a hospital room, my body covered in bandages and IV lines. The clean white walls and sterile smell were nothing like the bloody mess at the compound. My body was covered in injuries, and every time I moved, I remembered the violence we had endured. Doctors and nurses moved around me, their faces expressionless. I was just another casualty in a long list of wounded, a number on a chart. They patched me up, fed me medication, and left me to my thoughts. The Special Ops team had suffered heavy losses. Tate survived, though barely, his body as battered as mine. We didn't speak much. What was there to say? We had done our job. The news channels buzzed with stories of the invasion. They painted it as a victory, a triumph over a formidable enemy. But those of us who had been there knew the truth. There were no heroes, only survivors. The public would never know the full extent of the horrors we had witnessed, the sacrifices made in the shadows. The compound where the gate once stood was a ruin, a charred scar on the landscape, cordoned off and monitored around the clock. I spent my days in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events over and over. One day, Tate limped into my room, his eyes distant. He didn't say much, just pulled up a chair and sat beside me. We sat in silence, the weight of our shared experience hanging between us. "Was it worth it?" I finally asked. Tate didn't answer right away. He just stared out the window, his expression unreadable. "We did what we had to do," he said at last, his voice devoid of any sense of triumph or satisfaction. Eventually, I was discharged from the hospital. The outside world felt alien, a place untouched by the horrors I had seen. I walked the streets, a stranger in my own city, the faces around me blissfully unaware of the darkness that had nearly consumed us. Life continued, indifferent to the suffering and loss. The gate was destroyed, the invaders defeated. But the true cost of that victory was known only to a few. We were the ones left to carry the burden, our lives forever marked by the events that had unfolded.